Welcome to this video. In this clip, we're looking at clause 6.3 of ISO 9001, planning of changes. So straight into the criteria. When the organization determines the need for changes to the quality management system, the changes shall be carried out in a planned manner. It makes a reference immediately to clause 4.4, which you remember is the management system and its processes. And the point of the reference is to direct you there, because change management as a process is something that should be documented. So it's not necessary to have a set of criteria that you meet for very specific change, where you repeat that change over and over and stick to it rigidly. What it's looking for really is a formal approach taken for the planning and execution of each change. And the level of detail will be to the extent necessary, which is the first principle of documentation for these standards. So let's look at what needs to be included then. So the organization shall consider the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences. Think of, apart from the purpose, think of risk, contextual issues register, process risk register. We've always considered the consequences of inaction. So that's where you need to be thinking in this regard, treating a change in the same way as a risk. Change is risk. The integrity of the quality management system, once again, it's an outcome of risk, could affect the integrity of the system and the processes. So yeah, risk again. The availability of resources. In order to affect change, it's like anything else. It's the reason why plans fail is because they're not adequately resourced. Simple as that. The allocation or reallocation of responsibilities and authorities. Straightforward enough. You want to get people to own their input into the change and take responsibility for it, and exercise authority where they need to, within the capacity of the person and the role that they're in. So I guess in simple terms, changes are very straightforward, but how are we supposed to address them? Enable ISO customers will be familiar with our own methodologies, and I suppose the purpose of this video is to give you a little bit of support in using the total management system and the TMS registers in particular. So with regard to providing a policy for change, really there's a very simple, straightforward policy to consider here. A change can be considered in either minor or major terms. So one will be a straightforward change, which might be, changing a policy or changing a process to include a new step, or to revise it to a higher level to remove some detail where it's just not necessary. So that would be a minor change to the management system documentation. Other changes throughout processes might also be considered minor, where the associated task is relatively straightforward and really doesn't need to be planned in any significant way. But then there are significant changes, ones that I suppose have the definition of a significant change. In the terms that I would like to give people guidance, it would be where there are a series of actions that are required to affect the change. This is where we, at Enable ISO, we promote that change should be treated as a process. So the simple consideration then, firstly, determine the change. What is it? Secondly, is it a positive or a negative? If it's a positive, we document it on the objectives register. If it's a negative, we document it on the CAR register. And therein, we're able to demonstrate that we've considered at point A, the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences. The integrity of the management system is looked after in that way. Availability of resources. I think really planning and then execution is one thing. Planning the availability of resources is certainly possible through both of the registers we've mentioned, and the allocation and reallocation of responsibilities and authorities. So we can use the register to assign responsibility. This definition of the responsibilities and authorities will either lay within the role definitions register, where the person assigned with the responsibility has a particular defined purpose with regard to change management, or indeed in the actual change process itself. And we do that by documenting it on the process risk register. So negative changes are on the CAR register, positive changes are on the objectives register, and all significant changes where there are a series of actions required to effect a change, we treat those as a process and we document them on the process risk register so that we can then carry out the change and use the process risk register to audit ourselves and benchmark our performance against the set criteria. So subsequent videos will look at how we use the CAR register and the objective register to actually document the change. So that's coming directly after this one. And then after that, we'll look at the process risk register and take the viewers through documenting a change on that register. So yes, clause 6.3, it's very important. While it's not a particular high level management clause in ISO 27001, we've got to keep in mind that this process that we define here will also be applicable to our change management process that's required for inclusion in this statement of applicability. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you.